Hello, my name is Milana Boss. I'm transportation planner for the Louisville Metro Public Works, and I have John Swintowski with me here. He's a landscape architect for the Louisville Metro Public Works too. Both of us are project managers for the Louisville Loop project, and we are going to present our project and show you our fundings, our pictures, our maps, and data.
Thank you, Milana. The Louisville Loop intends to be a 100-plus mile shared use path around the Louisville, Kentucky community. The Louisville Loop is an essential component for health, mobility, and prosperity of the city and region. This shared use path helps to define Louisville as a vibrant and livable city by improving safety for pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, connecting neighborhoods, parks, and workplaces, and catalyzing community revitalization. The loop connects many of Louisville's neighborhoods, historic sites, natural areas, and greenways, and provides a venue for public art.
GIS as a tool has been the foundation of the planning process that have led to determination of the preferred alignment for the Louisville Loop. Locating the facilities where it can be within easy reach of the most residents and along the routes where they live, work, play has been accomplished through the analytical power of GIS. This slide is show our master plan cover page that we finished and adopted in 2013. Census data at the track level was geocoded to provide a socioeconomic profile of the loop corridors. Through project development, the potential impact and access of the population residing within tracts that fall within 1 mile of the existing and proposed paths were identified, including the link to schools, parks, and other key institutional uses. GIS data and visuals have served as a critical tool for supporting the narratives for the master plan process. This map is showing Louisville Loop, and as you can see, it's kind of goes around the Louisville City. And the whole idea of the loop was to connect the parks together, and you can see along the route there we have a lot of parks that are actually touching or connecting the loop. The blue part of this map is showing the segments that were completed. This one on the west side is around 25 or so miles. And on the east side of the city, we have completed 20 miles of the continuous share use path. The red part of this map is basically the share use path that is still under the design, and a few areas here on the east are under construction, or other areas waiting for the fundings. In the future slides, we will show you some of the pictures and basically just give you just a very quick tour around the Louisville. And we're going to start from the mile point zero, which is right here. That's the part where we have old railroad bridge that was converted to the bicycle and pedestrian facility. And that's where our mile point zero, where we start our loop.
As Milana has shown on the previous two maps that show the range that the Louisville Loop intends to cover, that the entire 100-plus miles has been planned and underpinned with the inventory and analysis powered by the GIS informational systems and applied by the consultant teams, diverse professions, landscape architects, engineers, planners, to come up with proposed corridors for the loop. The challenges have been where the data meets human users, and they're not always in agreement with information provided. There's many different kinds of users that want to use the Louisville Loop. They represent many different civic groups. They represent many different agencies and funding sources. And it's our job as the design professionals and the planning professionals through the data to persuade these diverse groups of people of the value provided in the benefit of the corridors where the loop is planned to go. And the reward comes with completing the plans. And this slide shows how long we've been at it. The original part of the loop, before it was even named the loop, was designed in the early 90s. And from that basis and moving forward, with more and more data available to us to synthesize and apply, we've been through a lot of master planning efforts to plan the corridor all the way around the community.
After we completed our master plan, we received some fundings and we completed Wayfinding master plan. So the Wayfinding master plan is basically the family of signs to mark the loop route by providing direction, distances, and interpretation. In addition to the identity, the loop wayfinding system includes mile markers, which are geolocated in the Louisville Emergency Management System. This allows emergency responders to quickly access the loop and reach people who need some help.
Embedded in the Wayfinding master plan is part of the basis for differentiating features of Louisville in the metro area. Louisville is blessed by having quite diverse physiographic regions represented in the county. 5 parts: the Ohio River Valley, the Knobs, the Shale Lowlands, the Limestone Belt, and the Floyd's Fork areas. They differ in their soil types, the habitats for animals and plants, the plant communities that make up them, and thus have led to the variety of history and culture that Louisville and Jefferson County have enjoyed over the years. And the 5 different colors start separating out where you are along the loop.
And our logo, our Louisville Loop logo, actually has a different color that represent each of the regions. So, for example, if we are using the loop along the Ohio River Valley region, so the logo will have the blue signs in that. If we are in the limestone, so the logo will change with the red color in that. And we have just a few examples to show you how it looks like. So for example, the existing trails along the Ohio River Valley corridor has the blue signs, and that's what this color represents here on the side. So people who are on the loop can basically it's the education tool for people to know where they are on which region. And the lowlands are represented in yellow. So the signs and the trailhead signs and the identification signs are having this yellow part of it.
The Wayfinding and Signage master plan for the loop came from a funding source, the Centers for Disease Control, that Metro wasn't used to necessarily ever applying to a project like the Louisville Loop. In partnership with the city's health department, a grant application was put together emphasizing putting prevention to work, trying to encourage the community healthier ways of eating, living, etc., to overcome some of the maladies of sedentary lifestyles, the higher percentage of um, poor health outcomes, obesity and heart disease, etc. And the project was awarded $2 million to put together the master plan, institute the signage, in addition to a couple other small planning projects along the loop route.
The next few slides is just to show our family of our Louisville Loop signs. What you see is the identification sign, and then this sign is actually located right next to the bridge that I mentioned before that was converted to the bicycle and pedestrian bridge. And this is our mile point zero. These are examples of a few other signs. One is directional and one is identification, loop identification sign. And this picture is showing the trailhead signs that just have map and some rules, the loop rules, and emergency contact information. And as I mentioned before, we do have mile markers that have a number, the mile number, where people can orient yourself where they are. And this slide is showing interpretation signs that we have in few historic places along the loop.
And so we begin a tour of the Louisville Loop. Begin at mile point zero, and again, as Milana's mentioned previously, this was the adaptive reuse of a historic railroad bridge that had sat unused for decades, and it now provides a fantastic link between Louisville and our neighbors to the north of the Ohio River in southern Indiana. And our mileage marker system proceeds counterclockwise or downstream along the Ohio River. And this first series of slides will take you through the Ohio River Valley region. The first section, first 7 miles were built in the early 90s and were named Riverwalk at the time. From downtown Louisville at the wharf and the bridge out past the falls of the Ohio to another historic property, parkland, the Portland Wharf Park, which reminds users of the history of our community and how the city grew up at the falls of the Ohio. Continuing downstream, the Louisville Loop enters the beautiful cottonwood floodplain forest along the Ohio River, which unfortunately from time to time floods. We have a detour route that follows Northwestern Parkway through the historic residential districts of West Louisville. Then the loop comes to Shawnee Park, which was one of the original Olmsted design parks and one of the first built in Louisville in the 1890s. Trailhead access is defined here to help users get on the loop within the park and know where they're going. Then the loop proceeds southward along the river to Chickasaw Park, historically African American park that was established, again, Olmsted designed during that dark period of segregation when Louisville's black population was disinvited from the original parks. This is a well-known, well-loved community park, and we're glad that the loop is integrated into it. Heading south from Chickasaw Park, the loop follows Algonquin Parkway, which leads us down into the Rubbertown Industrial District. Then the loop reaches Campground Road, and This really is the heart of the industrial and chemical plant district. Currently the loop is just bike lanes along the 3 miles of campground road, but we're in a design and right-of-way acquisition process right now, soon to reach construction to build the off-road facility along this corridor. Then upon leaving the Rubbertown Industrial District, the loop reaches beautiful territory, woodlands and floodplain forests again. The CID land was Community Improvement District properties that were acquired for flood management back in the 60s and 70s. The loop then follows several very easy miles on the top of the Ohio River levee. And then we intersect with another historic property, the Farnsley Mormon Landing, antebellum farm property from the 1800s, where you enjoyed magnificent views of the river and historic archaeology opportunities there, a visitor center, just a great place to visit in Louisville. The current 25 completed miles of the Ohio River Valley region end at the Watson Lane trailhead in southwestern Louisville. Upon leaving the Ohio River Valley region, we enter the Knobs and Shale Lowlands region of the loop and the landscape of Jefferson Memorial Forest. It's certainly going to be challenging to design and construct the loop through this beautiful, beautiful part of Louisville. Here's just a couple of examples of trailheads and paths that are built within the Shale, Lowlands, and Knobs area of the loop.
Recently, we built a few trailheads in the rural area of the Louisville, and this trailhead represents the one of the trailheads inside of the McNeely Lake Park. And here's another trail example that goes through the forested area of the parklands at the Floyd's Fork region. Last year, we completed the Middletown Trail, and this trailhead represents the limestone belt with the trail signs representing the color of the geographic region. Along the Middletown Trail, we have the historic old bridge, beautiful structure that we are planning to renovate for the Louisville Loop users. This slide is showing congested area where the loop was designed to provide safe connection and facility for bicycle and pedestrians.
The last segment of the loop is the Ohio River Valley Northeast section along the Ohio River, and it brings us back home to the Big Four Bridge and the mile marker 0. So the big picture is, through leveraging the power of GIS and its use through inventorying, analysis, selection of alternative routes, the planning sequence of engaging the public, and coming to recommendations for corridors, we were able to attract funding to move these projects into design and construction by how valuable that planning step was. And those funds have come from an amazing array of sources, from what we predominantly use now, the federal transportation funds, but also the Centers for Disease Control example for the signage and wayfinding. The Army Corps of Engineers has funded several of our larger planning steps, which incorporate not only the recreational component of the trail, but also ecological restoration opportunities. We've attracted private donations, individuals in our community that really believe in what the loop can be, and then our local general funds and our our metropolitan sewer district because many of the projects occur in greenways. Thank you for the opportunity to present our project at the Esri User Conference. We think it's a great example of the results that can come from using GIS as an analytical tool.
Yes, thank you very much. And please, if anybody has any questions, you can follow up with us, and we will be glad to answer any questions. Our emails are posted right here.